From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Knapsack.
I'm Jen Landa.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And we are here today to talk Star Wars news. Breaking news from a long time ago, or usually the weekend, a couple days ago. We got some film news. We got some R-rated news, just news about R ratings, and a revival of a video game coming your way. We are also letting you know that, hey, we appreciate those of you out there who have subscribed to our YouTube channel and helped us reach our goal of crossing 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're still climbing. So jump in over there. But also, we have our goal of our Patreon page. We're trying to reach 430 paid supporters on Patreon. If we do that, we're going to release a new Star Wars Ranked, one of the old episodes, the audio only, and as a new video version with Jen's creative video mind, her journalistic mind going crazy on this thing there. Something like that. We're going to help too. It's not on you, Jen. But anyways, head over to patreon.com/ForceCenter if you want to do that there. I don't want to speak too much for your workload, Jen.
No, I'm like, yeah, what am I gonna do? It depends on which episode we choose,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
yeah, that'll be really fun.
If history is guidance, we'll pick something and go. It doesn't need to be that elaborate, Jen. Just add a few visuals, and then you will make it this beautiful masterpiece.
It will be my research project for the summer.
There you go. There you go.
We should also mention the live stream on Friday. Speaking of ranking things, we're not doing a Star Wars Ranked episode this week. Instead, we're doing a live stream on this Friday. Hey, how do dates work? Friday, May 30th. 2 p.m. Pacific. We always like throwing out just a general topic, and we'll see where we go. And we're going to be talking about favorite moments in Andor. We love hearing from everybody in the ForceCenter community of what your favorite moments are, and then we'll discuss ours as well.
That's right. We will indeed. Before we get to the news, we always like to catch up with some life adventures. Jen, we begin with you. Life adventure, Star Wars, where do they all collide?
I went camping this weekend. So I'm not a camping person, but we went with a big group, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't really know these people that well. I know a couple of them. But it's one of those things where I forget everything I have is Star Wars branded, whether I've put a sticker on it, like my wine cooler mug that I have that had Admiral Akbar on it.
Do you think Akbar's red wine, white wine, rosé? What kind of wine drinker do you think Akbar is?
I feel like he would be drinking old fashions, which I don't. Right? I could see him like, martini.
It's a Jack
something.
Daniels.
Right. And so it comes to that point where they're like, oh, you really like Star Wars. And then I turned in the person that we all are like, oh no. I just started going on and on about, he's actually a Mon Calamari and he's from the planet. And then I was like, oh my gosh, is it Mon Cala? And then I was like, nobody cares. And I just kept doing that over and over again when they would ask me something. I'm like, well, that's a Kowakian monkey lizard. And in the book of, was it the book of Boba Fett? See, I'm getting my facts wrong. I'm like, they were in the trees.
Oh, Mando, yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But was it the Mandalorian? Nobody cares.
Nobody
I
cares.
was that annoying person that in a movie would probably get hurt.
Kill first in the camp.
Or killed.
Camp war. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, it was embarrassing. I was one of those things afterwards. I'm like, why did I go on and on about Star Wars facts? Nobody cared. Nobody needed to know. I care though.
I care.
Did people ask follow-up questions?
Yeah.
Did people go, like what was the response?
I think that there was a little bit of follow-up, which is why I kept going. But there's a point where you got to stop. But by that point, it was a couple Kim Crawfords in. So I just kept blathering.
Yep. That's what you do. I think we all have that trait. We all can do that. I'm one of those like, I took the 10. Oh, wait, no. I got off at I was Wilshire. I got off at no one cares. But I'll go for a while.
No one cares. Yeah. I'm happy I have ForceCenter and I have you guys to talk to this about, because otherwise no one wants to hear it.
This is in my life.
This is big news to me that you have Akbar on your wine cooler.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a purple Yeti like wine cooler thing, and then I put he looks very like stoic like that. That's good stuff.
It's 1 o'clock somewhere. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it.
That's so great.
Well, no camping in my life this weekend or ever since about 1984. So my life was pretty simple, other than wrangling my animals, chasing cats. I got a raccoon that is determined to stay in my yard at night, so I'm having to chase that wonderful, beautiful, but mean creature out. So I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm one with the force. I'm one with nature. I'm trying to understand animals. I'm trying to study their knocks, their sounds, their tail wags. And a couple times this week, I was like, this must feel like it would, to be a Jedi in like the High Republic era, like one of those Jedi that sees the Force as a zoo. That's what my life is. I'm trying to slow down and pay attention. It'd be nice.
Yeah,
I'm chasing out cats while trying to be nice to them at the same time.
You've got like Ezra vibes. You're in tune with the animals. You're some combination of a Jedi and Dr. Doolittle, apparently.
Yeah, you're right. I need to rewatch Ahsoka for the animal connections and maybe some Rebels with Ezra. That's a good. I got to make a note. Watch. Ahsoka.
Yeah, Ezra's always connecting with them animals.
Yeah. It's been fun. So anyways, I appreciate those who keep following my adventures. Unfortunately, I did lose a crow yesterday. Crow did not make it, the one I was protecting, but and I was devastated. I was really devastated. And normally I don't even like crows.
What happened to it?
Yeah.
Local predator. The poor thing couldn't fly and had been a week and a half kind of hiding around my yard and the neighbor's yard, but he wasn't injured. I think he was a fledgling, like an older teenage crow. So he didn't have his back plumage, his back feathers, and he wanted to fly, and he would gain a little bit of air. And anyways, see, I'm like Jen. Now I feel like we're in the same spot. But then last night I went to make myself some dinner, and I saw just a pile of feathers in the side of the yard.
No.
And I'm not going to lie, I had a little bit of a cry because I had been trying really hard. I had contacted 2 rehabbers to get it out, and they're too far away, and it's like one crow, and it's like there's 10,000 crows. Like, what are you going to do? So anyways, that's the sad update. But the squirrels are going great. They're waiting for Joseph to come over and have some breakfast with them or lunch.
I'm gathering nuts as we speak. Are we talking a cat, a hawk, a T-1000? What kind of Burbank predator?
I mean, quite frankly, it looked like Mandalorian and the pulse rifle. Quite frankly, just a bunch of feathers. Burbank is like, well, actually like LA, but Burbank is overrun with coyotes, where they're up and down, even the streets. So I think that there are some feral cats that have decided my house is the backyard they want to be in. So I imagine one of those could have done it too. But poor thing. So anyways, that's my update. The animals have been everything to me in the last couple of weeks. The conversations I've had with the squirrels are some of my best.
They're good listeners. When they choose, right? Make the intense eye contact and you really feel heard.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God, absolutely. So anyways, that's my life. Star Wars, Force, nature, connections. Joseph.
It's beautiful.
Take us home.
Beautiful. I've had some nice Star Wars adventures. We're going to talk about all the anniversaries. I watched like 15 minutes of The Empire Strikes Back on the day of its anniversary, and it was fun to just watch it. I haven't seen it and watched it like that in a long time. Biggest thing for me is just this was the first weekend I'd really had actual time with my wife in a while, so that was like, it was nice to sort of calm down a little bit. And strangely, the way we decided to calm down is watching a war double feature of Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. We watched Bridge of Spies, a film from 2015, co-written by the Coen brothers, directed by Steven Spielberg, and Saving Private Ryan, which neither of us had ever seen, and we knew was brutal. The only thing I knew about it is it starts with a devastating D-Day half hour, and that at some point, according to the memes, Matt Damon would morph into an old man. Those are the only things I knew. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is weird to watch things that have now, like, the meme is more known in some parts of the world, in some cultures, than the thing. Anyway, hey, those are both real good movies. Saving Private Ryan, obviously well known, is a good movie. I feel like Bridge of Spies kind of flew under the radar. Um, man, is it fantastic. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. But the reason that I bring it up is I thought it was really, both films kind of have a very Star Wars theme, a very Jedi theme, and a very Andor theme of, hey, we're going through hell to fight for American ideals. And because we're going through hell, it's really tempting to just throw those ideals out. That is the reason we're doing this in the first place. And it's like, wow, I didn't expect to watch Saving Private Ryan and Bridge of Spies and go like, Tom Hanks should have been in Andor. But it was really interesting to see those big picture ideas that animate so much of Star Wars, and in Andor in particular, in these two great films.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. I didn't see Bridge of Spies. But I do remember the Oscar controversy around it. Didn't what's his name from it get nominated? And people were like, "No, it was a different media."
Oh, it was
media
a
type.
Mark Rylance
Mark Rylance,
controversy. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah,
He was
but
great.
that was like, he was like, "Hey, he's just great." Other people wanted other things. That's the only thing I really. That's my meme of that movie. But yeah, Private
That's
Ryan.
right.
I love when like a big giant kind of watershed movie is as advertised. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, no, it is absolutely exactly what it was. Yeah, we were like, I was like, are you sure you want to watch Saving Private Ryan? I know it starts kind of brutal. And she's like, yeah, let me just make lunch and we'll watch Saving Private Ryan. And we started and like, let's pause the film, eat. And this is not an eating film. This
No.
is not an eating film.
No,
Yeah,
not a
that's my review. Saving Private Ryan, not an eating film.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Well, there you go. And from there, we jump into Star Wars news, and we have got a little bite-sized story that came out first last week, and this is Avengers, the Marvel pictures, the Avengers Doomsday, and Secret Wars have been moved to December off their May releases, 2026 and 2027. Call it moved, delayed, whatever you want to say, whatever movie talk term you want to throw at it. But the Star Wars effect is, of course, that the May dates for Mandalorian and Grogu 2026 and the, hey, are we going to get a film in May of 2027 questions? We now have a lot of space for Star Wars, which was, concern based off of Solo. 2018 and a lesson that we hopefully learned there. So I don't know if this is more about Star Wars or more about Marvel or who knows at this point. Joseph, what's your read and reaction to this news?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Mandalorian, Grogu, and if everything stays as it is, Star Wars Starfighter in 2027.
Right. Yep. That's right. Forgot about that.
I think it's I think it's twofold. I think it is about Marvel because these films are massive and they might need a little bit more time. But the reason I was really excited about it is it feels like perhaps the lesson of Solo has actually been learned by Disney and old Bob Iger. I was kind of concerned with what's the talk going to be if Avengers Doomsday does kind of draw audience away from Mando and Grogu, because that's what a lot of people said about Solo is like, I just spent all my going to the movie money and it didn't come back for, I chose, you made me choose and I chose the Avengers over Solo. So I was just kind of thrilled with that. Yeah. Why are we, kind of fighting ourselves with our own release schedule from the Disney perspective? So thrilled with that as a fan of both Star Wars and Marvel.
That's right. And yeah, thank you for reminding me. Totally forgot Star Wars Starfighter existed and was coming out in May 2027.
And the reason it's coming out is the 50th anniversary. So to crowd the 50th anniversary of Star Wars with this Avengers film. Yeah.
There you go. Jen, your thoughts here on the lessons, your thoughts on, did one day Bob Iger wake up and look at some notes and go, wait, zoinks, didn't we learn a lesson here? Let's do this again differently.
I'm glad that they seem to have learned their lesson. There's no reason to crowd 1 month. Why not spread the wealth, especially if it's the same company? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I was hearing 2026 is going to be a good year for movies, so that's encouraging, and kind of spreading it out could mean that every month or every season we get really big pop box office punch. I also think Star Wars is having a little bit, and I don't want to say a comeback because it's never left, but there does seem to be kind of some momentum happening with Star Wars, whether it's the Revenge of the Sith release in theaters or Fortnite, right? The crossover, or as we're going to talk about, Battlefront 2. There just seems to be a little bit more love around Star Wars. And I don't know, I think the Thunderbolts did pretty well, right? But I don't think it had the same like lasting power, it doesn't seem. So maybe they're like wanting to tee up Star Wars to make it a big success, and rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah, rightfully so, indeed. I mean, I'm so excited about it returning to theaters, and now one way I look at it too, though, is we as Star Wars fans are getting what we want, which is they got the month, and yes, there's other studios with the movies coming out and whatnot, but we have the month from Disney to get this done. And I'm not one who worries too much about the numbers, but I want it to succeed, right? I don't want to have that solo conversation again of, hey, I liked it. I know you're telling me some box office numbers that people didn't. Fine, I can't change that, but I still liked it. I want to have a different conversation at a party, which is like the movie did well. And then we can talk about everything else after that. So, as you said, John, teeing it up for success is a good thing for me. All right. That's it. That's the story. That's all the news. Bye, kids. We are sticking in the news realm here. And this is, let's see where we go with this here. All right. I'm not saying that to myself. We have got an R-rated Star Wars project, question mark? That's right. Ryan Reynolds pitched one to Disney, and just that headline alone is going to elicit a lot of different reactions. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool and stuff, told Scott Mendelsohn on the Box Office podcast that he has pitched an R-rated project set in the Star Wars galaxy, Disney. In the clips, he didn't say Lucasfilm specifically. I'm not reading too much into that, but just also felt that he did say Disney, not Lucasfilm. Reynolds was clear that he would not want to star in it, calling that a bad fit, but that he would want to produce, write, or be involved behind the scenes somehow. Here's some clarifying words before we dive in. I pitched to Disney. I said, why don't we do an R-rated Star Wars property? It doesn't have to be overt, A+ characters. There's a wide range of characters you could use, he said. And I don't mean R-rated to be vulgar. R-rated as a Trojan horse for emotion. I always wonder why studios don't want to just gamble on something like that there. So, all right, Jen, gut reaction to that headline. Where do you go with it?
Okay, so Ryan Reynolds pitched this because I believe he was already in the room with Disney. He just there's a new show coming out, or movie on National Geographic called Underdogs. It's being produced by his company. It's narrated by him. And so I think he was already there, right? He already has a relationship. This is not like just him coming in for Star Wars. Sure. So that was kind of helpful to talk me down, because I'm like, is this going to really happen? Because I don't want to say I manifested this, because a few weeks ago I was jokingly saying Ryan Reynolds in Star Wars, right. And here we are. Yeah. Okay. Where am I going to go? I'll just say one quick thing. Fans have always wanted an R-rated Star Wars show or movie. For years, we have been hearing about this. Since the 90s, I have heard about this. And Lucasfilm has chosen not to do that. And I think we can get into the reasons why a little bit later.
Okay. Okay. I love a good tease. It's a good journalistic tease, Jen.
Stay tuned after the commercial break.
Stay tuned. Sports and weather coming up. Joseph, the headline there, and I got some clarification there to discuss too as well before we dive in. But when you're having breakfast, when you're eating a donut, looking at that, waiting for your pizza in the afternoon, and you see that, where do you go?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great R-rated film. Is my diet, if you want to talk about adult issues. I think a good pass on Disney's part if they passed. Yeah. Which it sounds like. I like Ryan Reynolds, and I love the Deadpool movies, and I think we'll talk more about that, but I think he might be influenced by the fact that the Deadpool films were groundbreaking, and there's lots of reasons, in my opinion, that they worked up to and including the Disney breaking the seal and doing an R-rated MCU film, all that. I understand what he's saying by saying I don't mean R-rated to mean vulgar. R-rated is a Trojan horse for emotion. But for me, when I break that down quickly, R-rated as a Trojan horse for emotion, it means Andor on the big screen. Because I think Andor was R-rated as a Trojan horse for emotion. So it wasn't R-rated because of the explicitness of the sexuality, even though the sexuality was there. It wasn't R-rated for the explicitness of the violence. Even though the violence was there, it would have been R-rated in the sense of this is really focused on adult storytelling, adult emotions. So this conversation, pitching an R-rated film this way becomes a conversation of, do you want Andor for the big screen? A film that's less concerned with action set pieces, less concerned with pulpy weirdness, with whiz-bang adventure, and more focused on very, very grounded characters going through absolute emotional hell. And at that point, I feel like we're no longer talking about an R-rated film. We're talking about, would you like an auteur indie Star Wars film? Do you want it to be R-rated? Because it's made by Merchant Ivory, not because it's not R-rated, because it's full of nudity and exploding heads.
Yeah.
So what are people clamoring for? Is it explicit violence and sex, or is it truly an indie, a Star Wars film with indie sensibility?
First of all, I love that you've put the image of Helena Bonham Carter in Death Star with a View in my brain from Merchant Ivory. That's what we all need. Eva Thompson showing up, Anthony Hopkins. This is gonna be great.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be great. Malkovich, we got it.
Yeah, maybe Merchant Ivory isn't but
but no,
recent hits like Honora, Sean Baker, Poor Things, like a Midsummer like horror movie, indie films, you know.
But those have a lot of sex, and you know what I mean? That's well, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's the next question. But my my honest gut reaction to this trailer, to this headline, was absolutely not. And that's someone who enjoys Ryan Reynolds, who thinks he's funny. I don't have to hang out with him. I don't know. I don't care about the gossip. I don't have a dog in the Blake Lively fight. I don't know any of that stuff. Okay, so any comments on that later on by listeners? Got it. I'm just saying I enjoy his work and have for a long time. I was happy, though, once you read more, that's why I had the clarification up top of like, oh, even he knows now I'm probably not the right fit for Star Wars, at least in the way you know me, and acknowledging that I'm not just saying be vulgar, which leads to kind of what you're talking about of like, well, all right, this is my next question for both of you here as we discuss this, like, what does an R-rated Star Wars project mean to us in 2025? And I think it's exactly Merchant Ivory reference aside, which is, by the way, perfection, because I grew up thinking those adult movies were, serious things, and they were. But it's that. It is Andor. It is Rogue One, but somehow, a little farther into the realistic realm that Andor took the story. And I'm fascinated with that now. The conversation has almost changed because this is the poster boy. You're right, Jed. I'm not saying you did manifest it, but for years, because of Deadpool, this has been like a Ryan Reynolds Star Wars film type of thing. And I would die on a hill that is not the right decision, as thought. But to hear him talk about it a little bit more, it's that Trojan horse for emotion. And I've seen some people push back against that as, well, animation's a Trojan horse for emotion. Like, what is that? Like, what does that even mean? Emotion's present in all the Star Wars stories, which is what I would argue. But this also goes to the heart of George and 12-year-olds and everything. But, and I'll kick it back to you, Jen, first here, but what has started to change in me, and why I asked, like, what does it mean to me in 2025? I'm finding myself having to adjust that. A little bit of a fine. You know what? Everyone's been asking for this for so long. I'm done fighting it. I'm done fighting on it, going on New Rockstars and fighting it once and not asked back to the show. Like, no, I'm tired of having to say this to friends that I know, not even on air too, of just like, Star Wars shouldn't be R-rated. It should be and Andor is different, and Andor worked, but also it was Rick McCallum chomping his gum talking about Star Wars Underworld in this year, 2025, saying kind of it was going to be darker and grittier, and George wanted to go that direction. That kind of made me go, am I just swimming upstream against even some of what they intended, even though a lot of that went to the Clone Wars? A lot of the designs, characters, and Saw Gerrera, all that stuff went to the Clone Wars. So that's what it means for me now, Jen, in 2025. I don't know what a Star Wars R-rated project would mean to people and what they'd want.
Right. And I think things have changed. So like I wouldn't say Andor is R-rated based on how I see things now.
Mhm.
I would say like Last of Us is R-rated. It's
Right.
very graphic. There is more like, like well, not really sex, but like it's just more violent, right?
Mhm.
Okay? So that's how I would see that. An R-rated movie, I just it seems like you'd have a lot more sex or a lot more profanity or a lot more violence. So I'm like, how does Star Wars fit within that? And I go to the Knights of the Old Republic.
Mhm.
I feel like that is what people have been wanting. That you have the video game violence, you put that on screen, you add some sex,
Mhm.
and then there you go. That's, I feel like, kind of what people are clamoring for or have been asking for. I don't know if it will work, and I don't know if Lucasfilm really wants to do that. I think that Andor feels to me like a classy R-rated
Little
thing.
class.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just enough, and that is all an emotion. We see characters die. We see people getting sexy with each other, right? Like that's very
Yes.
hot and
Right.
heavy. There's a lot going on
Yeah.
there, but it's very classy.
Yeah.
It's not. I would not say that Ryan Reynolds is the right person to do this. No
Yeah.
offense, Ryan.
Even as a producer, to be clear, even as a producer.
No, because I think he's going to make it an irreverent take, right? I think that that's like the whole thing with
That's the
with
word.
Deadpool is
Yeah.
that it's like supposed to be like wink, wink, and aren't we being funny here? Like
Mhm.
I haven't really seen them all, but you know what I mean. Like I just feel like he's going to approach Star Wars by being like, "This is not the Star Wars your parents watched."
Mhm.
That to
Mhm.
me is problematic.
I don't disagree with anything you're
Mhm.
saying. I'm just thinking aloud here. Yeah. And picture you, Joseph, here, and I just looked at it. Yep. Saving Private Ryan, rated R
Oh
for
yes.
what it dealt with. So
Yeah.
is that kind of what he's talking about? I don't know. Where do you go with that? What does it mean to you?
We'll talk about it more, but I think Jennifer is really touching on something. Just in Ryan Reynolds' quotes, I think part of what he's saying is that it's the content, it's the heart of it, it's the storytelling, but it's also the marketing. He's saying that Star Wars, can certainly still surprise people.
Mhm.
So I think even if it wasn't like it's Dash Rendar as Deadpool making quips, just there's a
Oh,
sort of a marketing thing of like, wouldn't it blow people's minds,
right.
to have it be
Mhm.
rated R?
Yeah.
And I'm not, I think he is talking is he should, as somebody who knows the interest in the industry. He's talking about the show and the business. He's talking about
Yeah.
the art. It should be a Trojan
Mhm.
horse for real emotion and big ideas that maybe you can't handle in a PG-13 Star Wars film. And yeah, just the fact that it's R-rated would blow people's mind and make them go what and make them run to the theater and all that. I think the big part of this that I'm sure Ryan Reynolds discusses and has an idea for is the why. Um,
Mhm.
Deadpool worked because that's the character who should be R-rated. It wasn't, Marvel coming in and going, you know what? Spider-Man F's now. Like, let's just turn this on its
Mhm.
head, or Sony
Yeah.
coming in and going, you know what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, we're gonna go wild with it. I mean, uh,
Yeah.
Deadpool made sense. Wolverine makes sense. He's a violent character, and he is in the comic books, and you
Mhm.
know. Uh, so what is this Star Wars story that's like? We can't just hint at violence. We can't just hint at sexuality. In order to be true to this character, true to this story, the audience needs to see it, needs to feel it. Like when I hear whatever that idea is, like, I mean, if somebody wanted to do a Jedi Wick of like, it's in the High Republic era and a Jedi falls and goes on a revenge spree and it kind of needs to be brutal, or it's even if it
Mhm.
is just Star Wars normal hacking of limbs, but it's wall to wall
Mhm.
the way John Wick will like shoot people for 15 minutes straight, you know, is a Jedi hacking people's limbs apart and you got that orange glow and whatever, but it's 15 minutes straight.
Mhm.
Does that intensity of violence along with the sort of the mature theme of vengeance, does that reach the level of rated R where you kind of can't tell that story? And for me, that's what I would need. I would need a why
Mhm.
in the storytelling and the character, because otherwise it really is like, I look at like Solo and like it's a lot. Solo's about oppression and straight up slavery. I don't use the word lightly. It's about slavery.
Mhm.
Um and it is full of violence. It is horrific loss of the Beckett's team. Val's sacrifice. Just kind of disturbing to see. I'm forgetting the character's name. Rio slump over.
Mm-hmm.
Wounded and dying for nothing. Solo. That film is motivated by the sparks between Han Solo and Kira. That's a very sexy film. So like, violence and sex are huge motivators of the film Solo. And like, you could very easily make that an R-rated film with a couple more shots.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about it that way, I'm like, why?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to know who is the Star Wars Deadpool character or story that makes you go, yeah, that story is really cool, but you can't tell it unless you go to the wall.
You say
and it's Dash Rendar.
I know who it is.
Who is it?
I know who it is, you guys.
Yeah.
It's Jackson. Jackson is the key to all this. I am not joking.
He might be.
I'm not joking. Like, Jackson is totally irreverent. Like, doesn't even curse in the comics. I'm trying to remember. Like, he's just
Star Wars curses.
That could be our Pulp Fiction in Star Wars, starring Jackson the Rabbit. Well, no, he's not. He's a leppy, right?
Yeah, he is something.
Leppy.
Just kicking his foot all the way through people's chests, blood splattering on the camera.
That is amazing, Jed. I love that it's a trade-off. I love that to all those who've been on movie chat shows for the last 10 years going, Star Wars needs to be R-rated. And we're like, you get it. And it's Jackson. He's
the perfect person to do this. Now Ryan Reynolds.
Now you're on board.
If you make a Jackson movie, we will be behind you. I will be leading the crusade.
Okay.
Make it.
Okay. I'm here for it. Jen, you won me over with that one. The two of you won me over in the room. The two of you won me over in the room. Joseph's like, we got to find the right why and the person, and Jen, you go picture, both of you. Joseph, you touched up on this quote as we continue the conversation, kind of the same realm here. Reynolds did add, those kinds of IPs subsist really well on scarcity and surprise. We don't get scarcity really with Star Wars because of Disney Plus. But you can certainly still surprise people to what you're saying. Going back to the Solo thing, I think that's a great point. I just had a conversation with a friend off air, positive Star Wars fan, critical when she needs to be, but I was just kind of going through that. There's politics. The politics of Andor are everywhere, and Solo's a great example of it. It's this highly political film, and all this. And I was like Jen at a campsite. I was just like, Solo this, Solo that, Solo that. And she went, oh yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed it. Which, by the way, it is fun. It's also one of my favorite films to watch. But I was deflated by that because I was like, it's more than that. So maybe if we slapped an R-rated label on it, there's 5 seconds more of a kiss or one more blood on Chewie pulling off an arm. And it's R-rated, would people, not her, but other people take it more seriously. And it's part of the conversation around here. And about that surprise. So over, we're a decade on from the 2012 sale, the launch of the Disney era, and that Disney stamp that so many people were worried about and still deal with, right? That they were going to turn this all into talking squirrels, which also would be fun. Does Star Wars need that surprise, Joseph? Is you touched upon it, but is what Reynolds talking about the right kind of surprise for a franchise approaching its 50th year and it's almost 15 years with Disney?
I do think Star Wars needs to find ways to surprise. I don't know if this is the right one.
That's fair.
In the realm of why and characters and pushing it, like, yeah, they are pushing it, I think, with Shadow Lord, with a violent, emotionally disturbed guy as the main character. I think that some of the Star Wars fatigue, which is maybe not as bad as people thought, based on some of the things you were talking about, Jennifer, with the popularity of the great sales of Revenge of the Sith and just general sense of positivity around Star Wars right now. But I think some of the fatigue does, to me, stem back to the magic of Star Wars is a combination of the old and the new. I think that's the magic of the original film. It is this ancient tale that is steeped in the storytelling of the West and the East, but it packaged in a way that people had never seen it before in 1977. And I think there's a balance to be true to Star Wars its ideas and its visuals and what people like about it when it's risks starting to kind of lose that spark of bonkers. I've never seen anything like this before. So I do think that that's a real challenge to find ways to make it feel fresh and surprising. I don't know that R-rated is. I mean, I feel like the seal has been broken. There, I think there was a will Disney do naughty and like, yeah, they released Deadpool and Wolverine. They combined Disney Plus in Hulu, so you turn on, Disney Plus and like, would you like to watch Bluey or Anora? Like right there. And I know you can have settings for kids, but it's like Disney chose a long time ago. They're a general studio. They're not,
Right.
So yeah, I don't know that it's the shock that it would be.
No, that's a great point in terms of just the R rating and Trojan horse for emotion there. Jen, it's approaching 15 years, believe it or not. 15 years of the sale. So we've been around here for a bit, and this is the era of everyone, including us, having a podcast to talk about it. What do you feel about the right kind of surprise? If it needs one?
Yeah, I would have said that Andor would have been that surprise, but I don't think that's enough of a surprise to really shake things up and get new people interested in Star Wars. I think people have an idea of what Star Wars is, and when they hear us in the movie theater, they're like, that's Star Wars, it's just not for me. A way to shake it up would be a Jackson R-rated movie, because you'd have people who would be like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe this crazy movie I saw. Oh yeah, and Star Wars, can you believe that? And they'd be like, wait, what? That's not the Star Wars that I thought. There is a reason why you have brands like Pirate Booty who are doing Pirate Booty Blast, or, like Flaming Hot Cheetos, like or Coke Zero. What, you got to put a spin on something that people already know about you to make it fresh and new and make it exciting for your current audience, and maybe bring in new people who want to try the cheesier Pirate Booty. I'm sorry.
No.
The parents out there know the Pirate Booty is like, kids, the Pirate Booty, it's like, oh my gosh.
No,
but the Blast.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, it works. It works on me. Works on me. The amount of different variations of Reese's peanut butter cups or bars I buy based on the surprises, it works.
Right.
Someone alert Kevin Scott. Time to amp up Jackson.
I don't think that's Kevin Scott's mission in life myself, from seeing his social media feeds. I could be wrong. I also just think there's just such a difference between Marvel started its entire mission by, we are going to diversify and we're going to do it in the theaters. Even those first films, they're very, very different. Captain America is a World War II film. Right. Thor is a weird mythic film. Iron Man's is very grounded, modern at the time, military industrial complex film. I know people feel like the Marvel films get similar, but there is a lot of diversity in them in the theater, and that's what they've always been. So Deadpool slots into that.
Yeah.
And I feel like Star Wars in Lucasfilm are wrestling with the scarcity versus surprise, and they've leaned towards, let's keep films about scarcity, and let's do all our surprise with exploring different genres, different styles of storytelling on television. So part of this to me is the big, like, do they choose to go that surprise we've had on television? Because, hey, people might not like Acolyte, but it was real different. It was approaching R-rated with how scary the stranger was and how violent he was. Andor is really different. And whether they want to do that in the movie theater is, to me, one of the big questions.
And for me, that's kind of where it falls in this conversation of should they have a surprise? Do they need a surprise? All the kind of things, maybe numbers that I don't know how to crunch on how it would be received. But I think it is the theater. I think it'd be the place. Gosling and Starfighter could be a place to do it, and Sean Levy knows how to do that. But I think your point about what Marvel and just superheroes in general has always been a very well orchestrated hodgepodge of genres and styles. Different studios, of course, but like Nolan showing up and doing his at the same time that they're launching Marvel, and Marvel, molds into Disney, and then that weird Disney reputation earned over decades of fairy tale storytelling. But then even before Deadpool, there was a great amount of humor in the Marvel films that I think connect a little, connect easier to Deadpool than if you were to just do Jens Jackson, the R-rated robot, the R-rated rabbit. But a theater would be the place to. And I keep thinking, one of my favorite superhero films, and I'm not alone in this because it's almost cliche, but I love Logan, and I love Mangold and what he did with Logan. Another very R-rated superhero film, and you got him coming up. You got Bo Willman working on that script of a movie that we have no release date on, but I'm like, it's not exactly the vulgar R-rated place, but it could be that very Andor-like film, and that the film would be the surprise versus the TV for the public.
And that was another why, because it's a character of Wolverine, a guy who his main weapon is claws. At some point, there's only so much you can sanitize that.
Yeah, and the film, the film stands the test of time in terms of its with its depth and its message and its big why. But it did have the initial and then he put his claws through someone's head, woo. And I think that's what I have been fighting against for so long in Star Wars. If you just want to kill people and see butts, and that's all you want when you say R-rated Star Wars. And I don't want that in Star Wars. Not that I like it in other spots. All right, I'm a Game of Thrones fan. Okay, I know what sex position is. I've lived over there, but in Star Wars it's different. It should be about the big myth, the core, the speaking to the children. But then I go back to Rick McCallum, and earlier this year, Jed chomping the gum saying, "Oh yeah, we were going to do some shit in that series. It was going to get serious. Yeah, it was going to get dark."
Yep. I think you've made an alternate pitch here to Jennifer's Jackson pitch. Do we need a story of a really angry Sith called Darth No Pants, who's just totally pants. Open in the back, so you see his butt while he's murdering people. There you go.
There's a cut of the Acolyte where the stranger walks out of that water. All right. And the camera doesn't cut away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Maybe we need a Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what we need. I feel like that kind of disrupted things with Marvel. I don't remember the timeline, but I remember I saw that and I was like, wow, this feels so different than everything previously that I had seen with Marvel.
I think it was, and I think it worked, but I also think Marvel, to your point, Joseph, is set up completely different. Set up differently. Whereas, if Lord Miller had got their way and improv'd everything away from Kasdan's script to be more of a Guardians, maybe that would have worked. Maybe it wouldn't. We don't know. But it just didn't feel like the house style, and I know that can be dangerous because it leads to non-surprise. People might think it leads to non-risk, but it's a fine line in Star Wars. It's a little different franchise than Marvel to me.
Yeah.
Star Wars is often, and we talk about it here, Joseph, you talk about the old and the new, but it's often about speaking to the generations coming up behind the stories. Meaning, to me, the characters and the creators are telling stories that they know, lessons they've learned, things they want to impart to the generations coming up behind it. That, to me, is part of the core. That, to me, is the 12-year-old thing that George says that we always reference here. But what is the value? We're post Andor here. What is the value in Star Wars specifically reaching out to current generations watching it, which is what I feel the Andor effect is, which there's some numbers out on Andor from Nielsen that we could discuss, but they're so vague and they're so just 1 week and 3 episodes released in at one day. It's gonna change the numbers, and I'm not here to get into a numbers conversation, but the conversation around Andor is working. I obviously have had more positive conversations around Andor this season and last than other Star Wars properties. We have that even here in the comments and all those kind of things. But Joseph, does that make sense about Star Wars going, fine, we are going to speak to those currently watching, the generations that are living with these stories?
Yeah, and I think that question of how are we speaking to them? Are you taking the classic story of all trilogies of what about Luke spoke to kids in the 70s? What about Anakin spoke to kids in the 2000s? What about Rey and Kylo spoke to kids in the 20-teens? And just tell a story of you're a young person growing up, and what are you challenged by? What do you long for? What's in your way? How do you make those choices? There's just that kind of classic storytelling of the battles remain the same, but everything around it changes. So you could tell the story that way. And then there's do you build a relationship with a modern audience in the next generation based on the way and you deliver the story. And I think that's a much larger sort of cultural conversation. Is what is going to become of movies? Are movie theaters going to die and they're going to become disposable, or do you manage to turn movies back into events? And if you want to be a part of the conversation, you talk about the new Star Wars movie all summer. So this is such a big, interesting topic to me, and there's so many ways to approach it. But one of the things that seems to be on the horizon is that Kinberg trilogy, and I feel like that is the place to wrestle with. How do you update Luke's story, Anakin's stories, Rey's story to really speak to people who are growing up now?
Yeah, living it. And to be clear, as we have probably said now, 11 seasons of broadcasting, like there's everything, every Star Wars story has something for everyone. And Last Jedi was about growing older as just as much as it was growing up. It exists. It just, Andor made people believe it. I'm not saying this sarcastically or cynically, just like, oh, this is finally a story for me. The other stuff, that kid stuff, now it's differently. And I could fight against that. And that's where I'm finally giving up. That's where I'm just like, you know what? Maybe we need to do this. You talk about experience in films. I have a long-time high school buddy who's been in LA. We moved to LA together 28 years ago now. He's a film studies professor and a film teacher. He was at my house Friday. We were just talking about his students and the films he teaches and everything. And he just asks at the beginning of each class, 25 students in the class, who here has not been to a movie theater? And he says every time about 8 to 10 students raise their hand. They've never seen a movie in a theater.
Wow.
And these are film students.
Wow.
It was a fascinating conversation. And then you can, there's a lot of reasons for it, but it's also like talk about like Star Wars being back in the movie theater. I think that's important. It's Tom Cruise will tell you it's important for society and the world, and film industry. But anyways, so if that generation isn't going to the theaters, do you need to focus on the generation that is? But then, like you said, Joseph, who knows where that's all going to be? I don't know. Throwing a bunch of information into the salad here, but I don't know. Jen, any thoughts on salad?
I had a conversation with someone of our generation who was, as it turns out, he's a big Star Wars fan. He's watched everything, even watched The Acolyte. Was like, really? Okay. Was raving about Andor, of course, but he said good things about other things too, right? So that was really interesting. Meanwhile, there was a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old who were also there, who shared that they had watched the first season of The Mandalorian. They really liked it, and then they haven't watched anything Star Wars since. But what they were gushing about was Harry Potter. They had so much love for Harry Potter, and I was like, how do we get those people and how do we create our own kind of like Star Wars Harry Potter? And I think about Skeleton Crew and how my kids love Skeleton Crew. And I feel like if that had been in the movie theater and you had a trilogy of that, you could have grabbed that 10 and 16-year-old. I think 100%. That is the kind of, like they were talking about how they watch Stand By Me. Their parents are film people. Stand By Me, Goonies, like they've watched all the classics and they loved them. And so it was like, that's what we could do is kind of, and I don't want to say like reboot or rehash, but kind of like get those types of things, which I felt like Skeleton Crew did a great job doing.
Yeah.
Put that in the movie theater. And then you get a whole new generation, as well as our generation, who'll be like, aw, I like this. This reminds me of E.T. or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I like that take too. So we need a G-rated Star Wars.
Yeah, we need both.
We need both.
I think that's a great hearing tales of younger kids responding to really well-made classic films like Stand By Me. Just also makes me think like, well, I think the surprise we need is just films that are freed from some of the fear-based decision-making that is, I think, extra bad in Hollywood. It was affecting to watch Saving Private Ryan and look at like the number of choices, the number of moments in that film where I felt like, oh, I know what's going to happen next because that's the standard beat. And it did not happen. And I know this, I'm not a super expert, but I know this from personal experience, from pitching and literally being told to change my scripts to make them more predictable, to move the inciting incident if I wanted to sell the script to move the inciting incident from page 14 to page 13 of the script, to hearing script readers respond to The Last Jedi and say it's wrong because the act structure fell on the wrong minute of screen time. Hollywood has always been fear-based to an extent, but the amount that fear has affected the structure of storytelling, I think, has gotten deep into our bones, where it's both comforting and just like energy draining and enervating when you watch something and you know that the beats are going to land this place. The scene starts and you know the way the scene is going to end. And I think maybe some of the surprise we need is just less of that fear and more raw, human, surprising. This character does something that you don't want them to do, you don't expect them to do, but then it makes emotional sense because that's who the character was and that's always what they were going to choose. And I think Andor did a lot of that too, along with everything else. I think Andor just did really like, who are these characters? What are they going to choose? And you couldn't predict every beat because it was written from a very human perspective. Kathleen Kennedy gave Gilroy and team the freedom to not play to the beats that are wanted by executives out of fear these days.
I really think that's a great final point to aim towards of what you're talking about, just that structure, which has been present for a long time, but I think in the last 10, 15 years, it's just really been codified as the way to do it, right? As you want that big Hall H thing, how are you going to get that franchise? How are you going to get that shared universe? How are you going to do that? We've seen that kind of emerge over the last 15 years with these big IPs, and it definitely leads to fear-based decision-making. And you know, as much as I love Force Awakens, I get it. The third act kind of is a rehash, right? Like I remember sitting in the theater going, I wish it wasn't a big giant death bowl they were attacking. And I'm not accusing Abrams and anyone of not being brave in their choices. There's a lot of things that are different in that film. We've taken the deep dive in it. Check it out. Before you leave a comment on YouTube, check out our deep dives into the Force Awakens differences from other things, please. But what you talk about, you know, I think of that infamous digital media defining movie review from those people in Wisconsin with pizza rolls, who one of their big criticisms of The Phantom Menace was that it didn't adhere to the 3-act structure. And I remember years ago laughing and thinking that was, oh, what a great point. But now I detest that you would think the greatest, criticism to throw at George Lucas and The Phantom Menace is that he didn't follow Sid Field's goddamn book. And so that might be the surprise. I don't know. Jen, I didn't have all my coffee today, so am I making sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that I was just listening to a podcast about trying to get the new generation to be less meh when they're watching movies. And so I think that audiences have come to expect like these, they are like, oh, I already know the ending. Oh, I'm one step ahead of it. It's predictable. So that's why a Jackson movie, now I'm going back to the R-rated movie. That will appeal to the younger generation. Not my kids, but teenagers and above.
One other quick thing, and I know I've said this before, but it just since we're in Deadpool territory, my soapbox is the R-rated thing obviously does affect people and it makes them feel like adults, and they make jokes and do action scenes that you couldn't in a non-R-rated film. The R rating has value to Deadpool. Deadpool also just has successful jokes per minute. It's successfully actually funny, and I think the biggest thing of Deadpool's success, and the reason I get on the soapbox, is your great question, Ken, of how do you relate to the next generation. So much of our generation is consumed to not just with the stories, but the stories behind the stories of who did Kevin Feige like, who's fighting with Kevin Feige, who did he fire? Did Kathleen Kennedy make a good choice about Tony Gilroy? We all know Harrison Ford broke his leg. And Deadpool, most stories ask you to leave that all at home and just engage with the story. And Deadpool tells you don't have to leave any of that at home. I will tell you a story about the character Deadpool, and he's going to be relatable, and you're going to feel for him. And he's also going to turn to you and talk to you about every behind-the-scenes movie thing. And that is a huge power of Deadpool. And I think that's a question. Do we want Jackson to turn to the camera and acknowledge that Mark Hamill has had ups and downs with The Last Jedi? Like, do we want that? I think that is a way to speak to the current generation because it speaks to this information overload that we have, and you don't have to leave anything at home. Deadpool's your buddy, and he has an opinion on Infinity War just like you do.
And my answer is no. I would not have wanted Han to turn to the camera and be like, I don't even know who's directing me. Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I would not have wanted that.
Yeah.
Maybe another world. All right. Final thing on this one here. Just a simple question. Vegas odds time. We got Reynolds pitching this. And by the way, I didn't take from that. I didn't listen to the full interview. I didn't take that there was a no yet. It could, who knows? Vegas odd times. Jen, what do we think the chances of something like this happening? And when? Put money down. Could be low, could be high. It could be Reynolds, could be something else, could be Jackson, the butt showing rabbit. No, I keep wanting to call him a robot. Where do you go, Jen? What are your Vegas odds?
I should have already put money down since this already happened. I would have been up. So I'm going to say, I don't think that there was a no. I don't think that they would ever say a no to Ryan Reynolds. They're going to keep the door open. So yeah, it's a possibility for sure. He could come back in some form or fashion, whether he'll be, if he's going to come back, he's going to produce it. So yeah.
Okay. All right. What you're not putting down odds? You're not putting down money? You're saying no?
All right. I'm saying he's going to somehow weasel his way into a Star Wars project.
Okay.
Somehow. I believe it.
The over under is on somehow. All right. I'll put myself out here. I think there's a 45% chance that we're going to get a quote R-rated Star Wars project, but it won't be until 2030 after Filoni's Ahsoka story is cleared from the decks and they can convince Dave that this is the way to go. That's where I say, Joseph, money down. Yes or no?
Yeah, money, $2. I'm not really. I think it is entirely dependent on how does Mando and Grogu do. I think Mando and Grogu is going to be kind of its own thing, very different, but also like a classic return to Star Wars. It seems like Star Wars Starfighter will try to be fresh and exciting by having dazzling, Tom Cruise in space, not literal Tom Cruise, but Top Gun in space. But it's also the 50th anniversary. So I think those are both going to be somewhat traditional Star Wars films. And if they do fine, then I think bye to R-rated. If they struggle, I think Lucasfilm is going to be on their knees with Jackson's agent going, bring your naked green butt and your swears. Let's go.
Eat Chuta, the Jackson story. Appreciate that. Good stuff there. All right. That is our thoughts on the R-rated conversation, at least for this week. Let us know what you feel or pitch your own Star Wars R-rated project down below in the comments on YouTube or on social media. We'll tell you where to find us at the end. Next story, we got two little stories left here. Star Wars Battlefront 2 surges in players like it's 2017. You touched upon this, Jen. Perhaps buoyed by the large amount of attention given to Star Wars Day on May 4th and in its inclusion, the game's inclusion in the Star Wars bundle on EA Play. The 2017 game has set a record for active players as of May 23rd, at the time of this recording. We're a couple days past that. The game had crossed 11,000 players on Steam, and a similar spike was tracked on the PlayStation Network, including me for about 33 minutes this weekend. So, Jen, start with you. What do we make of this sudden surge in a, dare I say, now classic game from nearly 10 years ago?
Oh my gosh. I think it's Fortnite. I don't know. I mean, it could be the everything else that's going on, Revenge of the Sith, like we talked about, or Andor. But I really do think people are having fun with the Fortnite thing. That's been getting a lot of press, and maybe they're like, I'll try this. It's appealing, that bundle that they had, right? Is that how it was kind of advertised?
Yeah.
So
it's cheap.
Yeah,
it's
cheap.
Subscription for $6 to Steam. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you play it? Just because?
I saw that. I saw Janina Gavankar posted something about, hey, thanks to all the numbers, and I was like, what's going on? And I looked into it, and I was like, oh, do I still even have that on my PS5? Oh, I do. I'm gonna play it, and so I played for about 33 minutes, and I still enjoy the game a lot. The story mode is still one of my favorite Star Wars video game stories, and it's way too short because the writers were asked to, a lot of it was cut from the story, and they were asked to make it short, so. There's something there, and Iden remains one of my favorite characters. That's story mode, but the game mode, it gets repetitive, and part of that is now since then I have gotten deeper into Fortnite, and Fortnite is is kind of a wild adventure every time, and some absolute silliness happens, and you're playing with your friends in a more relaxed manner. Where I think I died on crate 200 times in one match this weekend,
My
so it's a little
gosh.
repetitive. But yeah, it's been fascinating to see this surge. A lot of reasons behind it. Joseph, I know this game meant a lot to you back in the day. We used to play it a lot.
Yeah, I loved the story mode, and then I got very hooked on the multiplayer.
Hmm.
And it was really only the lockdown that slowed me down when my wife was home all the time. It's like, hey, I'm going to make this wild choice to not ignore my wife and play
Yeah,
this video game in
yeah.
our living room all the time. I think there's a lot of factors to it. I do think the Andor causing a spike in Rogue One
Hmm.
watches
Right.
would make people go like, hey, yeah, there's Scarif levels. I
Hmm.
want to run around and do that. Revenge of the Sith having such huge box office and getting people excited to be like, yeah, I want to
Hmm.
play as Anakin and throw people around.
Yeah.
All the May the 4th. And then, the bundle is the really practical reason.
Hmm.
Um, but I also just think like, hey, it's actually, in my opinion, a really well made game. And I think this is kind of the same thing of like when a movie comes out and it's overshadowed by maybe some of the behind the scenes
Hmm.
knowledge of it. And then years later, people are like, wait, this movie's great. When this film first came out, they tried to do those. I don't even remember all the details, but they tried to do the sketchy. Um, you had to pay actual
The loot
money to
box.
level
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they got shut down immediately. And a lot of times I told people I play that games like, oh, I heard it was awful and that they tried to rip you off. It's like, no, they threatened to rip you off. They didn't do it. And
Hmm.
then the game was good.
Yeah.
So it might also be people who had just always heard that this game was a ripoff and
Hmm.
bad going, hey, wait, there's actually nothing wrong with this game. You get to run around, be Star Wars characters in Star Wars environments and lots of different game modes and styles.
Yeah. Jen, did you play this game or any in the Battlefront series at all?
I did Battlefront, the first one, Battlefront 1. And
The
I did
the
that. That was
2015 one?
exactly
Okay.
the 2015 one. I really liked it. And I won't get into that. And I never played Battlefront 2 though. Sorry. I did a job. It was really fun. New gaming era
Okay.
for Fusion. Anyways,
Yeah.
so that was really fun highlighting Battlefront with them. But what I liked about the Battlefront 2 is that it had that story of Iden Versio
Mm-hmm.
and that Janina Gavankar was like front and center. And it just seemed, and there was a novel that tied in. It just seemed like a really cool world to dive into. But it also had the Ewok hunt as well, which I
Mm-hmm.
never got to play. There was
Oh,
just a
so
lot
good.
of fun
Well,
things about it.
and it got added
Yeah.
later, a little bit later, Jed, and all I'm saying is it's there for you now. There for you
All
now.
right. Yeah.
It's the greatest thing.
So terrifying. So
It's
terrifying.
Oh
it's
my
terrifying.
gosh.
I was going to ask what you love about the Battlefront series, but Ewoks might be the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, even going back to the 2004 and 5 editions, as I've talked about a lot already, it's just getting to explore the world. I still love it. I spent a lot of, I was on the crate map this weekend. I played that hundreds of times, but even I was kind of wandering around the tunnels underneath it and just having fun exploring, like, oh, this is what was actually there, and kind of that getting inside the map. I play less with the heroes or the villains. I know, Joseph, you played a little bit more with them than I did, but
Mm-hmm.
it was the different classes of troops, but just run around Geonosis, running around Jabba's palace, like that never stops being fun for me. And that was part of the fun this weekend. Dying 200 times might be about my skill level or the craziness of the game, but even going back to the original ones, that was the joy, and I think the big benefit for me as a fan to actually crawl around the world that I love so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the huge thing for me is like the first person game to me it was like a fine game, but it was a fabulous story.
Hmm.
And then the multiplayer is just, hey, do you just want to be immersed in Star Wars? And like,
Hmm.
I love Bespin. It's one of my favorite locations. They did a great
Hmm.
job of that. So running around Bespin, being Dooku in his exquisite pajamas, trying to force push Bosk off a level, and just like
Right.
all the character interactive dialogue. If you're playing Palpatine and you get close to Chewbacca, he just goes, Skywalker's a Wookiee. Like there's this like endless, like just, it's the fun of Star Wars. You're just immersed in the aesthetic and the fun and the characters you love.
Absolutely. Final question on this one here. Look, wanting a Battlefront 3 is an obvious yes. It was in 2005, and it is maybe now. So what would we want in a third installment, Jen? It could be one little thing. It could be a level. What do you want to add in a Battlefront 3?
I can't imagine if they already did the Ewoks. That seems is surprising. I feel like whatever they do, they should definitely do another novel. And have a character like Iden Versio. I think it really helps. It helps bring publicity, and it helps you with being immersed in the game.
And Shriv, I forgot about Shriv. He's a great character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I love that. More novels, more characters to attach to. Joseph, what do you want in a third installment?
Just more characters, because every time they added new characters, that was fun. Built your relationship with them, and there's so many characters. They never had Padme in the game, which was a Battlefront 2, which was a big oversight. They didn't have Poe for some of the main characters. There was whispers that they had developed Ahsoka and Asajj before the development team in the updates got pushed, but you got Jar Jar is having a renaissance, so let's get him in the game. Mace Windu people wanted, but also. This video game will thrive on the number of characters who have been introduced or elevated by Disney Plus. To have Mandu, Grogu, Bo-Katan, Sabine, Ezra, Chopper, Cobb Vanth, Andor. Hey, do you want to play as Clea and just brutally sneak up on people and take them out? Just endless Partagas. Who can hurt people with a quip.
Yes,
endless more characters. I also I have played Fortnite once with you very briefly, Ken, at your home in person.
That's right.
And I love the thing it does with the shield closing in that makes you engage.
The storm. Yeah.
The storm. Yeah. Battlefront. A couple of the Battlefront modes could use that, because there's these mission objectives where it's your job to guard this button, and nobody guards the button because they just want to go kill each other. So I feel like they could use some game mechanics that make people do the mission.
Yes. I really like that. Yes, it was going to be one of my big things of slowing the game down in a way where the chaos of the deaths and the rebirths, when you're just playing a lot of those modes is fun, and but it leads to what you're talking about. If you can slow it down and that Fortnite and any of these battle royale kind of games, and there's a lot of them out there as well. That's the trick. You can be slow. You can sneak around. You can hide in a bush. You can put some strategy there, especially if you're playing with your friends. And they've had these Star Wars modes for a while, or the Star Wars cross promotions. And right now we're in a big one. And I am currently playing as Padme and Poe Dameron, and General Grievous was the one I had. I've been killed several times by Darth Jar Jar this weekend. And when you see that on the screen and you see it in the Fortnite world, I'm like, Ken Plum and I and others and Lauren Romo, who we play regularly, Hal Lublin, our buddy, we were all just make this permanent. Have a section in Fortnite that's just Star Wars all the time, because you're using blasters and lightsabers. So if you could do that in Battlefront 3 with their kind of graphics, their kind of feel, their kind of vibe, having the more characters, I mean, it's amazing. The list of characters are running down, Joseph. I'm like, oh my God, imagine that. Could I play as Brasso? Throw a brick at someone? Right. But combining that, combining that with a little bit of a slower gameplay, that it's a little bit more mission. Imagine, not story. I don't need to be story, but imagine sneaking around as Clea. You got to go do some stealth kill, or just, I don't know. It's not Battlefront 3, but I'd like to run the antiquity shop and just barter and worry about Imperial spies. And then the final thing is, I don't know if it would totally work, because they've kind of done it. Some of the Hoth levels, I think in that first Battlefront 2015, were very much like Hoth in Empire Strikes Back. But I'd like to reenact and be a part of actual Star Wars battles as best you can. So there's going to be some room to move and change the canon, so to speak. So I don't need it to be canon, but imagine if you are truly in the Battle of Jakku, which in the story mode you are with Iden. But imagine if Hoth. Imagine you are in Bright Tree Village defending it during the Battle of Endor. Some specific, go into this simulator for this battle. I'd like that. All right. It's going to happen. Jen, can you start manifesting that?
Okay.
Light a candle.
Do it.
Light a candle.
Yeah.
Final fun thought. This past weekend was the 48th anniversary of the release of A New Hope. And that would be about, the 42nd? Is my math right? The 42nd on the Return of the Jedi? I don't know what time
I believe so.
Yeah. So we always get these anniversaries. We got big ones coming up. For 45th will be before you know it. And the 50th will be not too far from now. But we like to check in. Jen, what do those anniversaries mean to us presently in 2025, the year of our Lord?
That we're getting old. Because I forget sometimes. Sorry.
Ouch, babe. Ouch, babe. Yeah.
Yeah, those are my Star Wars movies, right? And it doesn't feel that long ago, but when I'm talking to people, younger people, it is a long time ago. And there's a reason why when I took my kids to see The Phantom Menace, it blew their minds because the digital technology, well, no, it was not shot digital then, but you know what I mean? Like the special effects looked a lot more modern. The story felt more modern. And even though they like Return of the Jedi, it didn't hit the same way that The Phantom Menace did. So I have to remind myself that. And it's why newer generations might gravitate towards The Mandalorian, right? So I will always love them. But yes, they are. It is film history. And I have to remind myself of that.
Yeah, I was just doing a quick Google search. What are the top films of 1927, which would have been the same kind of pitch to a kid in 77? Metropolis, Sunrise, Napoleon, Student Prince, and Old Heidelberg. Yeah, and that's just the reality. It's just the reality. It is. We are that, Jen. We are here now. You're here. You're old. Face it. Fight now. But yeah, this week, seeing people. The difference is in 1977, there wasn't a lot of people celebrating the anniversary or the world or the fandom of Metropolis. And we still got Star Wars going very strong. Pop culture runs on franchises and stories like this. And I still take that to heart as a fan, as someone who would be at a campground arguing about Akbar or defending Akbar or just drinking wine with Akbar. I'm with you, Jen. And to see the surge in Battlefront 2 players, to see Revenge of the Sith do well at the box office, and to celebrate these films this weekend just in a little tiny way. Remembering coming out of the theater at 7 in 1983 and staring up at the stars and thinking, what's out there? What stories are there for me? That's never left me. I'm glad we still get to celebrate it. Joseph, you, sir, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the age thing is, that is hard to ignore because a lot of other people aren't going to pull out the original Star Wars storybook that covers are falling off because they actually didn't have it in the 1970s like I did. And so some of it is age. Some of it is me reconnecting to how I felt when I was young about these films and the time they were made and feeling that energy. I saw some other people our age just, waxing poetic about the summer of 1983, and they were tasting the bubble gum that came with the trading cards and sort of like, so if you're alive, I think some of it is the reconnection to what those times felt like and how times have changed. I think it's also fun for me in terms of I love May the 4th and I'm done being on a soapbox about a pun-based holiday. It's great that people celebrate Star Wars.
Yes,
but
same.
As somebody who really does love history, I do think it is actually important that we record like when did these come out and what is the history involved in the time? What was on people's minds in May of 1983 and why? What else came out? The actual history is important to me, so I'm glad that we note those. And final thing I'll say is there has been negativity in the Star Wars community as people fight over different things. Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker being really controversial, Mando being really popular, and then people kind of souring on it, and even people who aren't in the Star Wars bubble are like, I hear you Star Wars fans are nasty. I hear you're cruel and angry to each other. And like, it can be easy to overcome by that negativity, but it does feel like lately there's kind of a step back and like, well, Revenge of the Sith made that money for a reason and or was successful for a reason of like, Star Wars actually isn't diminished. There are things at its core that are deeply compelling. And despite the negativity, it isn't just, immature people who like laser swords because we're nerds and dopes. there's compelling things at the core of these stories, and they're still popular, and that's why, not just because we are like nostalgia fools.
Mm-hmm.
There are compelling things about these stories, which is what draws us to them.
Indeed. Well said. Great way to end it. Well, there you go, friends. R-rated Jackson butts, memories, stories, video games, all here. What are your thoughts? Reach out. Let us know on social media, ForceCenter Pod. We're most active, of course, on Blue Sky. We do have a Facebook page if you want to reach out there, ForceCenter Podcast, Instagram, all that stuff. Subscribe here on YouTube. We are available as a podcast in a lot of spots. Just search, you'll find us. Places like Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. Merch available at TeePublic and Fourth Wall. Links down below if you're watching on YouTube. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly. Get into our Discord. Happy to say we at no point have been a CIA-run Star Wars podcast website or Patreon page. So come on in here. But if you need to get some information back to us, let us know. We'll send it to the proper authorities. You can follow me at Catnapsock or my website, catnapsock.com. If you're local, love to have you come out Friday night, May 30th. We got the live stream here. Then I change clothes and head to the comedy club. Mark Ellis and I got a co-headlining show with a comedy press conference to follow, and also Sarah D featuring for us as well. So come on out, Flappers Comedy Club, 7:30 Friday night. Information on my website or their website. Jen, where can they find you and your Jackson fanfic that you better be developing?
I know. I might make a video. You can find that on Instagram at Jennifer Landa or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There it is, Joseph. I know you're still completing your film, Dead Media. You have places where people can still support you on that too in your own work.
That is
that is your own work. Sorry, the film is yours. You know, your other work.
Yes, mine and all the kind people who have helped me make it.
Yes.
Yeah, you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com. There is a link to an organization called Film North that can take one-time tax-deductible donations to the film. Thank you to everyone who has contributed in so many different ways. You can also sign up for my weekly blog letter, Finish Your Monsters, where I talk about the creative adventures. And right now I'm fairly consumed with the creative adventure of trying to finish this film. It's real hard. Great fun, and I'm very lucky, but it's also a lot of work. So thank you, everyone, for all the support. I think we should change the thumbnail. I already made the thumbnail, but I think we should change it to what wine would Akbar drink? I think that's how we can really get hits on YouTube.
There's engagement. There's engagement. There it is. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.